Hey, welcome to episode 252 of Awkwardly Awesome Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Freeman, and the title of this episode is Making Her Proud. Today I'm going to interview someone who grew up in a very small town. And I grew up in South Dakota, in big city South Dakota. Sioux Falls is about 200,000 now. Then I went away to San Diego, California for 10 years and in places what I found, I mean, I knew this before, but what I experienced living there is places are just really different. I mean, there were different opportunities in San Diego than there were in Sioux Falls. But I found that I missed the Sioux Falls opportunities after 10 years. So I moved back, and now, of course, I miss all my friends and the San Diego opportunities. But I bring this up because sometimes it's might be tempting to think, oh, it's a very small town, that wouldn't be many opportunities there, but there are a ton of opportunities there that just sometimes different than the opportunities that other people experience in bigger places. So anyway, I'm going to bring our guest on today to talk more about it. But first, this.
Today's guest, Zach Anderson.
Hey, welcome back. Let me tell you a bit more about Zach. Zach Anderson. Zach Anderson's upbringing embodies the definition of idyllic small town life in such a way that you swear it couldn't possibly exist outside of a Hallmark movie. He grew up in Canistota, South Dakota, just as his parents and his grandparents before him. Zach knew everybody in town. He felt he could go wherever he wanted in the community. He played most of the sports offered by his high school, including basketball, including baseball, football, track, and golf. There were 25 students in his high school graduating class, the majority of whom he'd known since they were in daycare together. His dad owned the newspaper on Main Street, and his grandparents' farm just outside of town. Zach worked his way from lifeguard to pool manager at the local swimming pool. Zach says, I thought I had all the opportunities. Zach says, I thought I had all the opportunities I needed. Please help me welcome Zach Anderson to talk more about small town life and the opportunities and challenges that come with being human. Please help me welcome Zach Anderson. Yay!
Hi, Jason.
How are you, Zach?
I'm doing well. I'm enjoying the Monday so far.
Good. So, I just realized I didn't look up the population of Canistota.
Yeah, it's about 650 people. It obviously varies. I think it was a little bit smaller when I still lived there. It's grown a little bit just because Sioux Falls continues to grow, and so people necessarily not wanting to live in Sioux Falls but be close enough to Sioux Falls tend to move to Canistota. So it's roughly 650 people, 700 when we get an influx of people.
About how far is it from Sioux Falls?
It's about a half an hour. It's Highway 42 or the interstate. We're kind of in between both of those, but both of those lead to Sioux Falls. So you can get from Canistota to most places in Sioux Falls that you're wanting to go, the mall, work, whatever it is, in about a half an hour.
So it's an interesting position where Canistota is because you're close enough to Sioux Falls, which is about 200,000, that you can get there and take advantage of all that it has to offer, but yet you're far enough that you don't go there several times a day probably.
Right. Yeah. No, growing up, I mean, we really, my mom worked in Sioux Falls. But other than that, we went to Sioux Falls only periodically when we, had some sort of event or if we really, really needed something. Otherwise, majority of the stuff that we needed or wanted, we could get in Canistota. We had a grocery store, we have a gas station. We had a couple places to eat. So we pretty much had everything we needed in Canistota. But if you needed to go to the mall for school shopping, or you needed something specific for an event, like some sort of a tie or, nice clothes, you might have to run to Sioux Falls. But otherwise it was just for pretty specific events. But otherwise, Canistota had everything that we needed. The grocery store was great. They had everything. Like I said, we had a place called Boxes at the time. It has since been purchased and renamed twice, but when I was growing up, it was Boxes. And then what we had the whole.
There was a grocery store.
Yeah, yep. Our gas station just kind of had, it was a gas station with a grocery store in it. So we had all the things that you could need and want. And a big part about growing up in a small town and being in Canistota was helping the community. So, a majority of the people that I knew growing up was all about that. It was all about helping the community, staying local. And so they would all shop at that, grocery store. It probably didn't have everything, but it had everything that you would need. And so, when you're growing up in a town of 650 people, everybody wants to help out each other and stay local and make the town great and all those good things. And so everyone went to the grocery store.
How was the community spirit cultivated, do you think?
I think just from long-standing people living in Canistota. My parents had some of the same teachers that I had when they were growing up, and we would see people in the community, and my dad and mom would say that's our kindergarten teacher. And the specific lady that I'm talking about lived to be 102 and just recently passed away. So, I think part of it is a lot of people in Canistota stayed in Canistota and had their families and some of their family and kids and things would leave, but some would stay. We have what's called the Ortman Clinic, and so that's kind of where Canistota's pretty well known outside of just the area that we live in, because of the Ortman Clinic. People come from all over for their chiropractic work, and so the Ortmans were a big name in the town, and of course there was a lot of them. And so I think just people sticking around, wanting to be part of Canistota and living there for as long as some of them had, really made and built Canistota into what it was. My grandpa owned the newspaper before my dad, and he had lived there a long time and was very influential in the community. My dad then kind of took the newspaper over and kind of continued on his legacy of being really a part of the community, influential in the community. My mom was on the school board. My dad helped be part of the city council. He's been part of the church council. So people pitch into different things, helping out, wanting what is best for the people of Canistota. A lot of the people that are there and are quote unquote lifers, they want what's best. And so then you join things to help, councils, you're part of the church, you're helping out at the school events, where that's concessions or whatever it is. So people really buy in and want to see it, Canistota grow and remain thriving.
As you talk, it occurs to me in a bigger place, like you see something like trash on the street. That's a bad example. Or like a call for volunteers to do concessions, and you're, at least I'm prone to sometimes think someone else will do that, but maybe in a small town it's slightly different.
I think so. My dad would definitely tell you that it's much, much different. I, learned from him and he learned from his dad, that, being kind of the change or whatever that you want to see in your town is, you got to do it. When there's 650 people, you're right. It's a lot different than, people living in Sioux Falls and bigger cities. They might not think that the entire home or place that they're living is their home. They just have the home that they live in. Whereas when you're part of Canistota, the whole community in a sense is a home. And, so when you see people needing a hand, you go help. When you see trash, you go help. I mentioned my dad is on the city council and different councils. I can't even probably name them all. But one of them is making sure that the homes are kept up and nice. And he very much prides himself on making Canistota look presentable. When people come for different school events or driving through or whatever it is, he takes pride in Canistota looking good to the outside eye. He'll tell you one of his favorite days of the year, they have citywide cleanup, and people will put all their trash on the curb and different things like that. And he loves that day because he just loves making his community and making Canistota look nice. And so he'll go into people's yards and cut their trees if they ask him. He'll rake their lawns, and then him and a whole bunch of other people that also sign up for the day go around and have truckloads of trash and things that they remove that people put on their curb. And so it's very much the entire community's job of keeping a smaller town looking nice and presentable. And whereas maybe in a bigger town, you expect someone else to do it, or it's someone else's job or whatever. When you're in a smaller town, we had a city man or a city maintenance guy, but it was very much a all hands on deck type of deal to just try to make it look nice. Everybody wants their community to look nice, and in a small town, you probably play a bigger role in doing that.
As a small kid, I grew up in the country, and I remember a common thing for me was trying to figure out how not to be bored. What was that like for you growing up? Did you worry much about boredom?
No, I didn't. I think I was lucky in the fact that the block that when I was really little, we moved to a few different houses within Canistota. But when I was probably about 9-ish, we moved to the house that my parents still reside in. And it had a big backyard. There was a bunch of neighbor kids. And so we played backyard baseball. We played basketball in the front yard. We rode our bikes all over town. The pool was a block away, and so all summer we were either, playing baseball in the backyard or basketball or hockey or football, or we were at the pool, or we were playing with water guns. I really enjoyed Canistota just for the fact that, when we had met prior, I was kind of telling you that, I could go all over the town and feel safe. And my parents knew that I was safe, and other people were watching out for me because they knew who I was, and I knew who they were. And so, they probably wanted me and all of my friends and things to be out doing all this stuff less. We were out so much. I mean, we were just out riding our bikes, doing things all of the time. We had a couple parks. We'd go to the parks. There was a little stream that was outside. I remember growing up that we'd go like crawdad fishing and try to catch crawdads. We were trying to catch salamanders in people's windowsills. We were catching snakes. We were just out doing stuff outside all of the time. I can remember growing up. My dad would be out there playing with us. He was usually the quarterback and get us all kind of lined up where we needed to go when we were playing football. And when we were playing baseball, he was the all-time pitcher, and we'd all get to hit, and it just was a blast. And I can never remember being bored. And this was before phones and all that type of stuff. I never really got into video games either, because I think growing up in a small town, it kind of lends itself to being able to be outside a lot, and not having to worry kind of about things that you might have to worry about today of people that aren't they don't have the best interests coming into town and doing things. Kids felt super safe. I felt super safe, and we were always doing stuff and running around town and finding games and things to do outside.
Then your mom's parents owned a farm. How
Yep.
close to town was that?
I would say it was 5 miles ish outside of town. It was really, really close. I spent a lot of time out there too. My uncle, who was probably more like a big brother to me, he and I would race different things.
You would race?
Yeah, so he always gave me the lawnmower, and he got a 3-wheeler, so he usually won. But we would race things. I would go out there. They'd have me pick rock. He had a basketball hoop in the upper level of their barn. We'd play shoot hoops. That's where I got my first BB gun. So I'd go around shooting my BB gun at anything that moved, not hitting anything. They had a whole bunch of trees, and so you could kind of get lost in those trees. I got to ride in tractors. I got to go out on the combine. So I had a really, really great childhood of getting to kind of do the town life. It's not a city. It was definitely a town. So I got to do the town life of playing backyard baseball and riding my bike all around. But then I also got to go out on the farm and do some of the farming type of things too. So I kind of got the best worlds of living in a small town in that aspect.
When you say pick rock, what was the purpose of that?
Yeah, so my grandpa and uncle would have me, and they'd usually have me round up a couple friends, and we'd go pick rock, just so that they could, when you're disking up the land and gonna plant crops and things, you can't have giant rocks because that would ruin different equipment and things. So they would have us go, and pretty much any rock, size of your fist and bigger, you'd grab and you'd put in the payloader, and you'd walk pretty much up and down the entire field, getting giant rocks and throwing them in there, and then you'd get a couple bucks and a good exercise. So,
Zach, this does not sound like an easy job.
no, I don't. I mean, I remember it not being my favorite thing to do. They would usually give us, $20 or whatever it is, which back in those days, 25 years ago, 20 years ago, whatever it was, you were pretty excited about that. So it definitely wasn't my favorite thing to do. And I bet my grandpa and my uncle would tell you that I probably complained, but it was good. It was fun. It was fun to be out there. I had my friends out there. I got to hang out with my grandpa and uncle and, get a little cash to go up to the pool and get some ice cream and a pop or something. So.
You play a lot of sports in school. When did you said you were playing with neighborhood kids growing up, but when did the sports start in school?
I was in third grade, I believe, when we started playing tackle football. T-ball, I think I was probably 5 years old. And then I can remember being like in second grade when we started playing basketball. So we started all those pretty early. That's kind of another thing with growing up in a small town. We had dads of my friends, or my dad. My dad helped out a lot too. That would just kind of get 6, 7, 8 kids, and then put us in camps and tournaments and different things. And so, I can remember playing basketball, baseball, football, all when I was super duper young. And, I just kind of stayed playing all of those because it was fun to do. I enjoyed it. I was fairly good at it. So I, continued to play and played basketball in college at Dakota Wesleyan and Mitchell. So I really, really, really enjoyed the sports. And like I said, we had a kind of a neighborhood of kids. And so we were, even when we weren't in the playing the season or whatever, we were in basketball, whatever, baseball, whatever it was, we were still playing outside just because we all enjoyed it so much.
So did you say the dads would just create a camp for kids?
Yeah. So I had one of my classmates, his dad was the head basketball coach for the town. I had another dad that he coached us in basketball for a lot of my younger years. My dad helped out in baseball quite a bit. There were several dads that my dad and other dads that helped out in football. So, I mean, they all pitched in. They all wanted their kids to be able to play sports, enjoy sports, and hopefully get better. So we definitely had a lot of buy-in. We had a lot of people's dads and coaches, and even people that didn't have kids involved. I remember one of our football coaches, he had really, really small kids when I was playing, pee-wee football or whatever, and he was helping out. So people just helped out because it was what was good for the town, and they felt like they had the time and the knowledge to do so.
I'm always curious about this. What would you say you've learned about life that helps you now from playing sports?
Oh, I think probably the biggest thing that sports taught me is just teamwork. I mean, even in all my jobs and careers and things, you get a lot further, and you learn a lot more and you do better as an organization when you have teamwork. People that tend to think that they know it all or aren't trying to get help from others in some sort of way or listening to other people's ideas. I just don't think that you get as far and it's not as enjoyable. I truly believe, I ask the people that work with me all the time, what they think and what their opinions are, what they would like to do. Now, that's not to say we're going to do it that way. As the director of RHD where I'm at now, I typically have the final say, but I at least would like to know and hear what they have to say. So I'd say teamwork's a big one. Obviously hard work, it teaches you hard work. You're not going to, if you don't put the time and effort in, you're not going to go anywhere in sports. And that's pretty much the same with having a career or a profession. If you don't put in any work into it, it's not going to be successful and it's not going to go well. So I'd say those are probably the biggest ones. And maybe a third would be building relationships. You got to enjoy who you play with, and the better that you can build those bonds with people you play sports with, the better you're going to be as a team. I would agree that that's exactly how it should be where you work. If you can build those bonds and get to know people on a personal level to some sort, you can work better together. You can tell when they need some help or if they don't need you to do anything, it just kind of helps you better to relate and understand what it is they're needing at the time. So I'd say those are probably the big ones.
Since you mentioned where do you work now? What kind of organization?
Yeah, so it's called Resources for Human Development, RHD for short. We are a community support provider in Sioux Falls. We roughly, I think about 8 years now, started here in Sioux Falls. Predominantly at that time, we were doing what's called shared living, which is someone with a disability that needs some assistance, lives in a person's home, and then that person gets paid to provide those supports. At the time when we started, they weren't doing families. Since then, it has been opened up to families, which has been a blessing and really, really great because there's a lot of families that needed that support, because it kind of helps a parent be able to stay home and be paid to stay home with their child rather than, not getting any sort of compensation. So it's been great. And then it kind of morphed into, so we still, a big portion is shared living, but then we have 5 group homes. We have a 50-person day program. We do some level 2 and level 3 supports out of people's apartments. So we do quite a bit residentially, and then also in our day program.
What should people know about the opportunities and challenges of working with people who experience disabilities?
I would say just kind of like anything else, you have your good days and your bad days. There are a lot of times that you can help people reach goals and milestones in their life, and it can fulfill you. You can feel really good about that. You can go. Our day program does a lot of really fun things in the community, so you can give back to the community while helping people. There are, some tough days as well. People, just like in anything else, you can have a rough day, you can have a bad day. And now what that looks like has a wide range. We do have some people with some fairly significant behaviors, just not being able to verbally say what it is that may be bothering them. They do that in different ways. And so sometimes it can be that they're not feeling well, and so they have a major behavior or whatever it is. So there's there's definitely difficult days, but there's a whole bunch of really, really positive days, where you're making a difference, where you see someone, really, really excited about something. We try to go, like just this last Friday, we took everyone to the zoo. We've gone to pumpkin patches. We've gone to swim. We've taken them on boat rides. We've done tons of things. And sometimes these people have never done them before. And just seeing the sheer enjoyment on their face can really, really fill your cup, and make you feel good about what you're doing. So there's definitely a lot of good days. There's some rough days, but that's kind of like with anything else. You're gonna have to have both of those. But there's definitely a lot of ways that you can make an impact and help people.
When we talked before, you were planning to do a week where you were going to celebrate your staff.
Yeah.
What was that week like?
It was really good. Kind of back to one of your original questions on what I learned from sports and teamwork. That setting up something like DSP week isn't necessarily my cup of tea, and so I put that kind of on my team members, and they did a tremendous job. In years past, we had a little bit bigger of a budget, just due to some government funds that we were given. This year we didn't have those, and so we were operating on a smaller budget, and so we had to kind of get creative, and they did a great job. We had a day where people got massages. We had an ice cream truck come and give ice cream to people. We were able to have a picnic and had some meat donated and some other things donated. We gave out prizes. We had a little video made of the people that we support, telling them what they liked about DSPs and
oh my gosh,
how much.
That sounds really touching.
Yeah, it was really great. And then we had like a little pizza day. So they had a lot of different things. And we got some RHD sweatshirts. We call it swag, but we got RHD sweatshirts, and on the back of the sweatshirt it says, "You're only as cool as you treat people."
Nice.
I thought that was really, really cool. So we got a lot of things, and we're able to do it on a much smaller budget. So it was very, very impressive.
Well, you last thing on the subject, you said the DSP a few times. What does DSP mean?
Yeah, so direct support professional. So a DSP is kind of the frontline person. They are in the middle of everything. They are providing the direct support. They're helping give a lot of our people take medications, so they're giving medications. They're helping with behavior intervention if it's needed. They're going out on these activities. They're helping remind people that they need to shower, brush their teeth, eat, whatever it is. So DSPs are very, very, very vital. They're very important, and they are literally what their title is providing direct support, and they are doing that.
Oh, I said that was the final question on that subject, but I came up with one more. How does the organization you work at now remind you of a small town?
Yeah, I think that since we've only been in RHC's only been in South Dakota for 8 years, we are still relatively small. There are other community support providers that are quite a bit bigger, and I think RHD is able to do some things that maybe other bigger CSPs aren't. Our day program is very much centered around getting people out into the community. I think that's kind of back to my roots of living in a small town, is being in the community, doing things in the community. That's very much what I learned from Canistota, and so I brought that into the day program, and I really wanted that to be a part of the day program, and it still is. We support about 50 people in our day program, and we've still been able to continue to do those things in the community, which is amazing and great. Shared living, we have shared living is the entire state of South Dakota. So we have people that are doing shared living with their loved one in smaller towns than Canistota. So I think that is great, and that allows people to stay where they're at. You don't have to move to Sioux Falls to receive different supports for their loved one. They can do it wherever they live. We have people in Montrose, which is a small town. We have people up in the Aberdeen area that are living in Roslyn. Roslyn's a very small town. We have people West River out by Rapid City that are living in really, really small towns. So I do think shared living, you can do it however you would like to do it, which is great for people living in small towns that want to stay in small towns, want to give back small towns. They can do that now because there's shared living. Whereas before, if you either toughen it out with your loved one, or they were having to move, or you were having to move with them to these bigger cities that have community support providers, and shared living really opened up people to stay where they're at and to reach all of South Dakota. So it's been very, very great. And I think that both of those things really tie into small town living South Dakota.
So through your organization, you really are supporting small towns in a unique way.
Absolutely. Yeah. Nope. It's definitely happening. I'm sure there's other small towns that I'm missing. I mean, Roslyn is very, very small, and there's no way people would have gotten supports and things without there being shared living. So we absolutely are able now to hit those small towns, and it's amazing.
That's awesome. Changing subjects. You mentioned your mother worked in Sioux Falls. What did she do?
Yeah, so she was a family physician. She was a doctor. And then probably around the time that I was going to college, she started to teach as a professor at USD. And so she was kind of splitting her time between teaching at USD and then being a family physician in Sioux Falls. And then she worked her way up into being the dean. She created the farm program, which is getting med students to go and work and help out in small rural towns. She was very much all about small town South Dakota. She grew up in Canistota, graduated from Canistota. Like I said, we had some of the same teachers. So she was
your parents actually met like in 8th grade, right?
Yeah, well, my mom was in 8th grade. My dad was a sophomore, and they had a few little bumps in the roads, but they pretty much were together ever since she was an 8th grader and my dad was a sophomore. And then I came along, and they got married, and we all grew up in Canistota, me and my 3 siblings. So yeah, my mom and dad both are very, very big about small town living, rural South Dakota, giving back to the community, all those type of things. My mom, being a family physician, was able to get one of her days seeing patients in a clinic moved to Canistota, which had never been done prior to her doing that. So she opened a little clinic in Canistota, and on Wednesdays would see, the residents and different things of Canistota come in to that clinic. So and then, like I said, the farm program, which was getting rural medicine and people to go to that. She started that through USD. So she was very much about small town living in communities.
Zach, you said of your mom, if you refer to life as a test, she had all the answers.
Yeah. Yep. She passed away March 2024 from cancer. She battled cancer for 3 years. And I think that she just, for whatever reason, she was so smart and well versed in all areas. She just knew what to do whenever there was a problem. She had all the answers, even while going through chemo and radiation and fighting cancer. She still worked at the USD med school. She still tried to go to as much conferences and things as she could. She still was constantly getting phone calls, people asking her opinions, and what they should do and how things should be ran. She just was so incredibly intelligent, knew what to do in all situations. And yeah, had all the answers. You know, I was asked the other day, well, it was probably a couple months ago now, you know, how I was doing since my mom had passed away. And I kind of had given the same answer. You know, if life's a test where me and my siblings and my dad are trying to figure it all out without having the cheat code, which was my mom. You know, it's completely different world that we live in now, because we always had her to rely on and to help guide us. And, you know, obviously she's still there for us, but just kind of in a different capacity, and we're having to figure out things on our own now. And, you know, we're doing our best to continue to try to make her proud, because we always know she's watching and looking down on us. But she one thing that I just thought of with Canistota and small town, she would tell people all the time that all roads lead to Canistota. She could be at a conference in North Carolina or San Diego or Texas, and she'd find some connection of somebody that knew somebody or something in Canistota.
Wow.
She always was able to do it.
That's amazing.
Always. And that's not even a fabrication. She always could find some sort of connection to Canistota. And she would always say, all roads lead to Canistota. And she truly meant it. Just because, you know, someone knew someone from Canistota and there was some sort of connection, and she would always figure it out and find it. And it was just kind of another one of her superpowers. And she would say it all the time.
That's amazing.
Yep. Even when she passed away, and we would continue to you know, go to events and things to, you know, there's a couple of awards that were given in her honor, a couple of scholarships that were given in her honor or have been made since she has passed away. And, you know, people that we talked to there would tell us that, you know, she would say all roads lead to Canistota, and we'd all laugh and things, because she really meant it, and she believed it, and she would always figure it out. And she would tell anybody that would listen, all roads lead to Canistota. And, you know, so it just goes to prove that you can live in a town of 650 people in rural South Dakota and go anywhere and do anything that you would want to, and still have those connections back to that small town.
What has the process of grieving your mom's death and the rebuilding been like?
Yeah, I think it's been tough. You know, everybody kind of grieves differently and experiences things differently. There's no real way, you know, there's no set way to go through it. I think, you know, you kind of go through all the things. You're sad, you're mad, you're sad again. But at the end of it, and it does take a while, you just got to realize that, you know, that person that you've lost, what would they want for you? You know, they wouldn't want you to continue to be sad or depressed or whatever. They'd want you to continue to live your life. They'd want you to make them proud. They'd want you to be happy. You know, so I think I always knew that. There have been times that's a little bit more difficult than just saying it, you know, because you have to do it and live it too. But there's no real way to go through it. You got to kind of go through it on your own. But I think in the end, what keeps you going and what you have to come back to is just the fact of the person that you lost and realizing what they would want for you. They'd want you to be happy. They'd want you to continue to be successful, whatever that is, and however that looks. They'd want you never move on. I think of my mom every day, if not almost all day, every day, and things that I do and decisions that I make, so you never move on, but you just realize that what they would want for you. And then you got to go live it and try to make them proud.
And Zach, that's challenging, and at the same time, it's really inspiring perspective.
Definitely. Yeah, no, it's not easy. I mean, there's kind of going back to being a DSP and working in the field of community support providers. There's good days and bad days. I think you have good days where you just wake up and you want to make that person proud and you want to conquer the world. And then you have days where you're just really, really sad and you miss them like crazy. And I think, you're going to have those. I think you just kind of learn how to work through them and how to kind of gain some perspective on life, I guess.
Thank you. No, you are a dad. What of your small town experience, in your experience of family, do you want to impart to your son?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, you have your family that you're born into, and then you have your spiritual family, but I think you have community family too. And so I think kind of along the same lines of things that we've been talking about, I'd want him to be a part of the community. I'd want him to give back to the community. My wife, we currently live in North Sioux City, and she works in the Dakota Dunes as an ortho PA. She loves her job and the people that she works with. But I think that where we live is still small enough that you can make an impact. You can be involved in things. I'd want him to be involved in things. I want him to experience things. I want him to, just get the most out of life. You only have one. You don't know how long you're going to have it. My mom was only 53. So you have to pack it all in. You got to do all the things that you possibly can, and give back to the community and really try to make a difference. Be remembered for the things that you've done, to impact people.
It sounds like you really want your son to participate in life in a major way.
100%. Yep. I want him to go out for things. I want him to try things. Life can throw curveballs at you. So you kind of have to roll with the punches sometimes, but just try things, experience things, whatever that is. In life, life will give you opportunities, and you have to take them if you want to experience things and do things. Really comes down to decisions and stuff, and I just hope that he makes the decisions that are gonna positively impact his life and other people's lives, and that he can through those different connections and things and stuff have a happy, fulfilled life. I think that's what everybody wants.
So sometimes people including me, get afraid of the curveballs that might come, and sort of there's a tendency to want to step back a little bit, so not to be in such a vulnerable place. What advice would you give to us?
Yeah, I think being vulnerable, in every instance in life, you can learn and take something away. I think being vulnerable can have a positive impact on you. I didn't know that I was going to be on a podcast, and then I met you and agreed to be on the podcast, and here I am. I would say that was a curveball. This is me being vulnerable, talking about my life and myself. But I think that it's also good. I'm talking about my mom, thinking about my mom, getting to, continue to spread her positive message on life and Canistota. I love Canistota. So I think just being vulnerable, a new door can open up. You can gain some sort of perspective from it. You can gain different things from being vulnerable and trying different things. I remember when I was in high school, I had shoulder surgery, and so I couldn't run track, and I couldn't golf my senior year, and I was feeling sad for myself, and wasn't sure what I was going to do for the last month and a half, 2 months of school. And the town of Canistota was having a play, and that probably wouldn't be my type of deal. But I had the time, and they needed more people, or they couldn't have the play. So I said, sure, I'll go out for it. And I got a part in the play. I did the play, and I remember my mom being super duper proud of me and happy that I did that. And I remember some of the administration of Canistota telling me that they're proud that I had done that, because without me joining, they wouldn't have had, there was too many roles and they didn't have enough people. And so they wouldn't have been able to have the play. So all those other people wouldn't have been able to do it. So I think just being vulnerable and taking opportunities, can teach you things, can change the course of where you're going in life, for the positive, and even things that don't go well or don't break your way or set you backwards, you can still learn. You're always learning. You're always, trying to gain new tools in your tool belt, and you can do that from failing. You can do that from being vulnerable, whatever it is.
That's an amazing story. So had you ever acted before that point?
No, that's not. Yeah, no, that was definitely being vulnerable. That was not my thing. I didn't really like that type of stuff. But I was like, I have the time. I want these other people to be able to do it. So I just said, you know what, I'll do it. And it was fine. It was good. I did my parts and things, and I think I learned some stuff. And I remember, like I said, my mom was probably more proud of me for that than for my sport, things that I was a part of and accolades that I had gotten from being in sports. And then the administration and things, I remember a couple of them telling me that they're proud of me for stepping up and doing that. I had a bunch of my friends come out to support me and watch, and family and things. And so there's a pretty big crowd, not to say that there wouldn't have been a big crowd anyway, but, definitely added people to the crowd. So it was good. It was good that I did that. I felt good for doing that. And I think it definitely taught me some life lessons about stepping up and being uncomfortable and it being okay.
It's a great story. You're the oldest of four. What's it like being the oldest?
I'm quite a bit older. My next sibling in line is my sister, and she's 7 years younger than me. Then I have two brothers, who are 9 and 12 years younger than I am. So, I'm quite a bit older. And so I think that kind of makes it so that I try to kind of impart wisdom on them, or, help them through their lives. Cause a lot of things that they're going to go through, I've already done, whether that was college or finding a job or dating or whatever it was. I definitely try to take the big brother role and helping them and giving them wisdom and whatever it is. But I like it. I enjoy it. I don't know any different. I've always been the oldest, of them. So I don't know any different. But I liked it. I, like seeing them succeed. I like seeing them be happy. I had one brother, just go to Hawaii. He moved out to Hawaii to help with some agriculture startup. They're going to start doing corn out there. And so he had some buddies that were already doing that. And so they said, there's a spot for you. And he asked me what I thought. And I said, now's the time. You just graduated college. You don't have anything tying you down. I definitely think you should go. And so he went. And then I had another brother that was working in Indiana. He moved back to Minneapolis. And so he was asking me different questions about that. And so I was trying to help him through that. My sister went on a mission trip to Africa. And so she thinks she wants to do that full time and move to Africa to help with mission work and different things. And she's a OT. And so she's trying to work through some of that stuff. And I tried to impart my wisdom on her for that as well. And just said, I think don't do it right away. Make sure you have it all thought out and have a plan. And so she's kind of come up with a stepped out plan, which I think is going to be beneficial and good for her. So I just try to help where I can. And if they come to me with questions, I try to give my guidance, and I just, hope the best for them as their big brother.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Zach, on the show, I talk about the power of doing an imperfect best. And what it means to me is I envision the best I want in my life and the best I want to contribute. And when I go for that, and when imperfections come up, mistakes, obstacles, what have you, instead of being stopped by them, I try to learn from them and move again forward. Mm-hmm. What does doing your imperfect best mean to you, Zach Anderson?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've kind of talked about that a little bit throughout this podcast. I feel like it's just, if you have bumps in the roads and different things in your life come up, personally, professionally, whatever it is, sometimes you got to step back and, see where you're going to go from there. You can learn from everything. You can, continue forward. There's nothing really that, you can't take something away from. I would say is the biggest thing. Even my mom passing away, was unbelievably hard, but I think that there are things that I can take away from that and learn. I think that there are things I can take away from and learn from being a dad, from being a husband, from being an older brother, from being a son, whatever it is. I think that you can take things away and learn and use them in other areas of your life. Professionally, there's going to be constant battles every week. We have new things come up, that we're trying to pivot and fix and change and improve. I think that's just life. You gotta sometimes know when to roll with the punches, know when you need to ask for help, know when, changes need to be made, professionally, spiritually, whatever it is. That's all life is just a array of choices and decisions and obstacles. And you kind of have to try to keep figuring them out, and you can pull from other things and from other people and, continue forward.
I really appreciate that. That's a great reflections on doing your imperfect best. Thanks so much for your time and being on the show, Zach. And please, I'm going to end the broadcast now, but please stay on the line for a minute. It just takes a minute for everything to upload.
Okay.
And thank you, all of you. Thanks to all of you for listening and considering and learning and being on this awkwardly awesome journey called this podcast and called life. And remember, you are the best. You are the one and only of you in the world. You can do things that no one else can. Thanks for being you. Have a great day.